Okay, so after the 3 weeks notice of interest, how much time do we need for settlement? 10 days statutory time for settlement. 10 days plus 20 days, 30 days. If you're in the business world, generally most accounts in business are what? 30-day accounts. 30-day invoice. After 30 days, if you haven't settled the invoice, what happens? You're overdue, and what does the invoice become? Statement. And the statement is notice of an aging account. Dishonor. You've gone beyond the terms of the settlement agreement. So here is the court, which actually took the simplified full acceptance for value, where Vic wasn't arguing any issue, just said, I'll settle it. Now, did her attorney come to Vic and say, oh, that was a fantastic little move, man. Oh, I put that in, and we got people on the other side crying. How did you learn how to do that great event? No. Actually, what happened is the court appeared to be ignoring it. And only when Vic was pushing a matter privately in the court, trying to be recognized when there was an attorney for the defendant, did her attorney turn around and yell at her, shut up, I spoke with the judge and he's agreed there will be no prison term. Wait a minute, have we already got a judgment in this case? Where was that judgment made? In private on the right-hand side of the case. Does anybody in the public know about this? Nope. It's a pre-cut agreement. Stay in honor and it's going down. See, what her attorney said is, the draft that you sent to me by letter rogatory on the private side, and notice the judge, the clerk, the prosecutor, it worked. Because here is her attorney who admitted he went to the judge privately. Isn't that an ex parte hearing? Where in the public rules does it allow an ex parte hearing? It doesn't. Not in the public rules. Why did the judge not throw the attorney out of there and say, get out of here, I can't talk to you? Because Victoria is the creditor, and the judge has to listen to the agent of the creditor. So had Victoria turned the tide of the case? You bet, as long as she can stay in honor. Did she stay in honor very long? No. Which turned the tide of the case back again. Because she went high, wanted to change the terms and conditions of their offer. Wouldn't allow settlement in their terms. Okay? Well, she said the last time I talked to her was latter part of last week, and I emphasized to her what I just emphasized to you. Well, she can come back and apologize to the court and tell her that she accepts that offer and she humbly awaits the hearing. And then go from there. Whatever it takes, okay? All right. 3 cases in a row, same types of outcomes when you consider what's going on. Now, for something a little bit different. I got a email from a guy. I'm not going to name the state. I'm not going to name the parties. I'm not going to go into the whole deal because it's a little premature and we don't want to talk about the whole deal except for some concepts in generalities. This youth, young kid, genderless, a ute, happens to be a child in a divorced family, Mother remarried, father remarried. His mother and his stepfather have custody of him. And the stepfather and his mother went through a common law marriage. No marriage license. Recorded in their scripture, which under the rules of evidence is perfectly valid to prove the event that the courts must recognize. It has never become an issue. This Ute was in school, and the school had a short administrative hearing when they discovered that the Ute wasn't taking his medical prescription successor to Ritalin, time-release drugs, to keep his exuberance under control. And because he was not taking the medicine prescribed for him, they ruled it to be a dishonor, and so they kicked the Ute out of school for about 4 or 5 days as a penalty for his flagrant violation of the prescription and the rules that he should be on his drugs. But they asked him why he wasn't on his drugs, and the Ute said, "My mother and I checked on the internet, and we found out the long-term effects were more harmful than good." So there you go. Private investigation overturns medical prescription from a public licensed doctor, and therefore we can't have you outguessing the professionally licensed doctors, so you're in violation and we're kicking you out of school for a while. So during the time that he was out of school, the Child Health Services basically decided it wasn't a good idea to put the Ute back with his mother, and so they put him in with the father and the stepmother, which a court, the child youth had originally told the mother, don't allow him to go to the father because the father beat him up and it's not a healthy environment. But now, since he isn't taking the medicine, which is going to hurt, harm, and kill him, it's better off to put him in with the father that's going to beat the crap out of him than the mother that has an interest in making sure he has no long-term effects. Okay? So, with the wisdom of our government moving forward, the kid is out for his 4 days of whatever or so, and then comes back to school. When he gets back to school, the kid is a little spunky, and the kid says to the principal and one of the youth welfare workers, "You guys better not mess with me, because my mom and my stepfather have me on a UCC-1. And they're going to come in and they're going to beat your butts if you mess with me." Now, you got to love the subtle nature of this youth. Yeah, he probably needs the drug, but what's very interesting is the Ute is under 18, so he's incompetent, so he can say anything he wants. And obviously he has not taken the legal training course on being humble and going low to win friends. But what was more interesting is the outcome that proceeds from his statement to the principal and to welfare. Because they start investigating, and lo and behold, the Ute's mother gets a call from the school and also from welfare saying, "Is so-and-so your husband?" And she said, "Yes." And they said, "Can you prove that?" And she said, "Yes." And then they said, "Has your husband filed a UCC-1? And she goes, "What in the world are these people getting at?" "Well, I kind of kind of think that they know the answer to that question. I probably better not lie. And she goes, well, yes, he's filed a UCC-1. Now, what's interesting is the UCC-1 that her common law husband filed is not even in the state in which they're living and the kids in school. It's in the state of the husband's birth, which is many states away. And yet they had located the UCC-1 over in that other state. Now, his wife and the Ute is not listed directly as debtors on his UCC-1. But there is a clause in there which could imply that he's covering anyone that's in his family. So when they talked to the Ute's mother, they said, can you come down here tomorrow? We'd like to meet with you. And so she was apprehensive, but she decided to go down there. And when she went down there, she saw the Ute's open folder and saw a copy of her husband's UCC-1 sitting in that folder. So, yep, they'd had a copy. Now, over the next several days, some very interesting things happened. This mom got calls from the UCC division office from the state they were living in, stating something about the fact that the Ute's accounts were going to be moved to her husband. And they said something about the school apologizing for countermanding the orders of the Ute's mother. And they kept referring to the Ute as being your private property, unquote. Never speaking of the Ute in terms of a gender or a person or a living kid. Saying things like, and from now on we will pass notice to the teachers at this institution, and the Ute will be respected here as long as he elects to remain here at the institution. And we are gathering all of the offending drugs from your husband's house, because we have a sheriff's officer over there now, and within the next week to 10 days, the Ute ought to be back in your home. It's like, hello, what's going on here? And then they said, we'd like to wind this up, but there's not 2 accounts. There's 9 accounts in the Ute's name, which have to get moved between the feds and the state to your husband. And on one call they said, of course we'll need your signature on this when it's prepared. And she goes, okay, I think I can do that. Then they called back about a half day later and said, we apologize for bothering you. All of this is so new, but we don't need your signature. We need your husband's signature on the paper. Duh. He's the secured party creditor. Now, people started thinking about this. Wait a minute. People that have been going through a lot of this redemption program have been accepting the birth certificates for value, putting them on the UCCs, and then they've also, after doing that, notified the Secretary of Treasury about the birth certificate and the SSN account, right? Where does law begin? Yeah, with God, but where does all of man's laws and regulations begin at? Well, birth certificate is an important factor, but well, they're commercial instruments. But where's the situs of most law begin? In the county in which people reside. and live. All the law begins at the county. When they record the birth certificate, where do they record it? In the county in which you were born. When you register a car, where do you record it? County in which the car is registered. When you register your deeds and your property, where does it begin? County. The county is the situs of all law. The birth certificate begins in the county. The birth certificate is a registration of a vessel on the Sea of Commerce. So it's registered. So what? So you've registered the vessel. Is the vessel in commerce? No, it's registered. It has the capacity to do commerce. Yeah. You've registered. You have the capacity to do commerce with the car. Privately or commercially, whichever way you want. Okay. What is one of the first major factors with your offspring? A Social Security number establishes an account. So you got a bank account. You never use the bank account, you're never in commerce. You take your kid to school. You register, you enroll him in school, don't you? You ever looked up the word enroll? Enroll. To register or transcribe a legal document is a deed. What have you just done with your kid? Gave him away. Into an official record on execution. You've executed your kid by enrolling him. Formerly also spelled enroll, to prepare for the executive's signature. What do they call the chief official at your school? A principal. What is a principal in commerce? He's the creditor. You've just enrolled your child by producing the birth certificate, giving them the account Social Security number to a principal. For what purpose? You just turned over control of the child to the head of the school. He is the agent to run your kid's life. You enrolled your child to the principal. Now, it doesn't make any difference whether he's in public school, private school, or any place else. To get him into any school, you got to give him to a principal. And you got to produce a Social Security number and a birth certificate. Now, who is the direct authority in that kid's life? The principal. What patriot doing any part of this whole process has ever gone to the school system to get control of the body back? I just read a transcript on a guy who's 37 years old. He's in a federal district court out west. The first question the judge had is, can I have your name and your date of birth? Second question is, what was the farthest level of education that you had and where did you go? Every time you change school systems, what do they have to do? Have the birth certificate, the Social Security number, a re-enrollment, and what does that school do with regard to the kid's records? Transfers it from the old principal to the new principal. All your papers have to follow your military career all the way through the military system. When you go to college, they're still getting transcripts. So who is it that holds the body? Principal at the local level where you last attended school. There's your commercial benefit where you implemented the registration. Now, out of the mouth of babes, here is this Ute that says to the principal and a welfare worker in the state, you guys better watch it because my stepdad and my mom have a UCC1 and they're going to come and bust your ass. This is probably the first time anybody officially noticed a principle that you don't have control. And what did the principal and what did the state youth people have to do? Go to the state, go to the feds, and transfer the accounts privately back to the father based on the UCC. You don't think this thing has probably mega power? We don't know, and this isn't done yet. But it's so incredible as to what's opened up here that I just thought that this group privately and the people on the tapes should be aware of some of the things that are happening. Yes?
Has anybody here ordered anything from Barton Buttes yet? Anybody? Have you talked with him at all? I talked with him briefly earlier this week because I ordered those packs. And he told me that he has talked to people at high levels in 48 states, Washington, all over the place, and they are scared of this. They know that we have uncovered something.
Oh, yeah. But it's got to be left in the hands of responsible people. That's the key. We're to be responsible on this because we are the ultimate servants and we're humble. If you come in with a high attitude, you're in a contempt. And believe me, you can follow this process 220% correctly, like Victoria was doing. And believe me, it's not like Victoria's trying to be dishonorable. And she's got a high level of learning and understanding. And of course, it's like any of us, once you see the ultimate answer to a puzzle, it's very easy to go back and see, yeah, that's it. When you're involved like she is, when you're in jail, you can't openly talk to her. I can talk to her on the phone probably quite well, but you have to understand they're listening at all times and they know what's going on. But when Victoria knows an awful lot to begin with, that's fine. But when you're talking to her, you got to understand that no matter what's going on, they could charge anyone with practicing law or any other stupid charge they want. You can teach, but you want to do it backwards by asking them the questions, just like you do to the public officials, so that you teach by them learning it themselves. And I've just basically told Victoria that, look, Vic, aren't you going high by suggesting that they have to resolve this in 3 days? What kind of a real creditor are you, the one that's willing to resolve this issue, if you're coming high and forcing them to do it in 3 days instead of 4 weeks for whatever reason they've got going down? Now, of course, we've got more understanding as to why 4 weeks are probably reasonable in terms of a procedural process. But the whole issue is it's not easy, especially when you're involved in a case, to see the whole thing. And believe me, because it is a puzzle, you're as much worried about not having done enough as being worried about overdoing something, too. So you've got to keep your wits about you and understand the major premises and the concepts of what you're to be doing. Pete?
Let's assume that you have completed education at some place, so you have a degree. That's the highest thing you got is some degree. Well, let's say it's college. If you were to then accept that degree and put it on a UCC, would that then reclaim your rights from all prior educational principles?
Quite possibly, but notice the principle of the last enrollment. Certainly, if you don't put them on notice, what good does it do? Theoretically, see, when the youth said, my father has a UCC-1. They had a duty then, a presumption to check that out. And so when they investigated, they found it, even though it was in a foreign state.
Okay, so you would actually have to send a copy of your UCC then back to
Might not be a bad idea.
the president of Purdue University. Or
and
whatever.
why would you send it to him?
Notice.
Mm-hmm. You're not sending it to him like the boy went, nah, my dad's going to beat you up. You send it to him like, hello, I just want to give you notice that I'm taking back the authority to run the account on the private side. That doesn't mean you're the enemy of that principle. He is still your public shadow. You're administrating it in private, but you're giving him notice that he's your shadow in public. So you're going to work with him, not against him. Yeah.
Well, one other note, Jack. I don't know if you recall, but a couple of months ago I was trying to add something with a 3, and they kept rejecting it.
Yep.
And then told me they had in error accepted my first one and sent me $9 feedback that I had originally paid in 1999. After talking with Barton, he says I should have filed in my birth state. He says a lot of people are wrong, and I didn't do that. I was ignorant on that, so I have to go back and start all over. So just a hint to most people.
Yeah, because look, it's the birth certificate and the associated documents that ended up in a security someplace that puts you in the commerce, and the records come through the birth state.
Yeah,
so
and that
certainly, if that's where the paperwork was held, that's where the notice of the acceptance ought to go, both there and your resident state.
Well, he said the reason is because they all lie within particular districts. I guess it's the 10 as far as I can tell. I'm not sure. I'll just have to wait for the paperwork to come, but I have to start all over again.
Well, you didn't screw up. You just erred by not doing the full process. So you got to go back and complete it, which will just make it better. See, everything that we're doing, when we find out there's more to it, just improves upon your notice to the public. That's all. It doesn't mean, oh my goodness, I've really screwed up now, I'm in big doo-doo. It just means, oh, I should have done something even a little bit better to help these people do their job a little bit better. Yes, John.
Yeah, this is John. Going back to what you were saying about the principal. Now, when you graduate from school, what do you get but a diploma? That diploma is signed by a king, a prince, or a sovereign to do something which would normally be unlawful. So apparently, there's got to be something there about the principal having power over you in the principality of the school district.
That's right.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Look at some of the other definitions of enrollment. An enrollment of vessels under maritime law. The recording or certification of vessels used in coastland or inland navigation as distinguished from the registration of vessels used in foreign commerce. So aren't they enrolling us all internally, whereas we would be registered to do international work? So they're just telling you you're an inland vessel. That's all they're telling you by your enrollment. Enrollment and registry are used to distinguish certificates granted to two classes of vessels. Enrollment evidences the national character of a vessel engaged in coasting trade or home traffic. And you wonder why you need licenses? Because you've been enrolled as a vessel? Registry is used to declare the nationality of a vessel engaged in foreign trade. Yes.
Yeah, I just thought of something too. When you register a vessel with a state, and you say a boat, you get the state sticker for it, that's a registration.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a way to get not to register them. And you got to license them with the federal government, which is called documentation. And when you have a registered vessel and you go into a foreign port, Most of them will charge you an outrageous fee to use that port, but if it's documented, you don't pay a fee.
There you go. Okay, so instead of enrollment, you want to go through documentation on a national level. Very interesting. Another definition, enrollment office, a department of the Court of Chancery responsible for storing enrolled deeds and judgments. The enrollment office was abolished in 1879. Its duties were transferred to the central office. This came out of the Civil War, didn't it? Because of the violation of all the people in the states to the Constitution. What is a court of chancery? It's King's Court, dealing in equity admiralty. So all enrollments and registrations deal in equity out of the King's Court. So who is the principal of the school? Agent of the King. Dealing in chancery. Has absolutely nothing to do with the Republic and your unalienable rights. Another word, member. You all think we know what members are. A member under maritime law. Under the Jones Act, a person who is attached to a navigating vessel and assists or aids in navigation is a member of a crew. He's a seaman. Military law, a person assigned to a court-martial to determine the guilt and punishment. Aren't we members of juries? Aren't they all court-martials? Yes.
You said something about the unalienable rights. Is there some way they can take those away from you?
You have them on the land. Unfortunately, we have no land. We're all on the deck of the Titanic.
Okay, rewriting the
So all you have no rights. All you have is remedies under private international law, under the policies of the navigation of the vessel and the administration of the office of the vessel.
Yes.
He doesn't look that confused. He understands all he's got to do is read the fine print on the back of his ticket. This vessel is going to hit an iceberg. That's it.
But I can claim Declaration of Independence, Creator gave me unalienable rights.
Right. It sure did on the land. Where is it?
Oh, okay, you're saying there's no land. But that's because they say there's no land. I say there's land.
Are you a lunatic? Let's get a mental competency exam for this guy. He doesn't even know he's on the deck of the Titanic. We'll hold another hearing in 30 days. I guess he can't feel the rocking motion under his feet. Okay. Let's see. Where else were we going? Oh, cool. Talking about schools. What do the odds the principals know about it? I don't know. Never been a principal before. They probably just follow their policy book. And if you come in and start talking about that, they're probably going to go ape and have to start looking at their policy book again and then figure out what in the hell is he talking about. However, the principal and the official working with this Ute knew something when the kid basically said, hey, my dad's going to beat the crap out of you at his UCC1. It got their attention. Okay. We are looking... looking for the word pupil. In Black's Law 7th, there is no pupil, there's pupilless. Isn't it interesting that it's under Roman law, a child under the age of puberty and under the authority of a tutor. Tutor. See, the neat thing about playing games in the dictionary is because then when you get to a word that you believe you really understand and know, then you just say, oh, he's just under a tutor. Tutor. One who teaches, like in the school system. Especially a private instructor. Under civil law, like in Roman civil law. Ready for this one? A guardian of a minor. You don't think the principal has legal control over the pupilless as a tutor? He is the guardian of a minor, a person appointed to have the care of the minor's person and estate. Why do you think the school, public, state, and federal, have accounts in his name? And what are they doing with these accounts? How are they running these accounts, and for whom? How do they actually finance the public school system? Do you think it's actually with the taxes that they collect off of the properties of the income? Or do you think it's by having the estate under the Social Security number of the person so that they can go out and borrow in the student's name to finance undertakings of whatever they want? And why do you think that if you homeschool, the states are so mandatory that you enroll through the public school to get the permission to go out and teach your student at home? Because when you enroll, you might teach them at home, but they're the head tutor and you're just the substitute teacher. And who's controlling the accounts when your student's home? And who's getting the money? Yes?
Yeah, Jack, you might be right on that one because my daughter homeschools in Massachusetts. They don't enroll, but they have to run the curriculum by the school system to know that these children are being taught. And what's funny is she went to a homeschoolers convention the other day, and she came back, and her two daughters came running to her. Mom, what new books did you get? She says, where did you ever hear a public school kid say that to their teacher? But the other thing I wanted to say was when a student is absent from class, they don't get any money that day that that child's in school. That's why the truancy laws and all the problems of these children, they don't want any of them being
based
absent.
on attendance?
Absolutely.
Got to show up for work just like you don't get paid from your employer when you're not there. You may have one or two excuse days by doctor's permission for being sick, like a sick leave, but they're getting paid to run those accounts. Okay? Now, we know what happens to pupilless by way of a tutor. Now, what happens, that's for a minor. What happens? Does the kid have to go to school after he's no longer a minor? Why? Because the principal is no longer the tutor. He's only the tutor until the time the kid becomes past a minor. Okay, now, what happens when the kid goes beyond being a minor? And he doesn't have to go to school because the principal is not his tutor anymore. Well, they've covered that one too. Aren't we having fun, I hope, yet? Curator. In Roman law, a person who manages the affairs of another, a guardian. It's no longer limited to minors. See cura. Curator ad litem, a curator appointed by a court to represent the interests of a youth or incapacitated person during the proceedings before the court. Isn't a curator ad litem an attorney? Curator bonorum, a person appointed by a court to administer the estate of an insolvent person. Isn't that the bankruptcy court? Interim curator, a person appointed by a justice of the peace to hold a felon's property until a royal administrator could be assigned the task. Civil law, a guardian who manages the estate of a minor, an absent person, or an incapacitated person. Curator ad hoc, a court-appointed curator who manages a single matter or transaction of special guardian. So once you have become of age, then basically it's entirely possible that the principal of the school no longer is merely your tutor. He could well be your curator, still holding the documentation, if it hasn't been released. Is the nation under a tutelage? Then is the nation free? Let's see if we can find tutorship. That's a tutor over the ship. Or vessel. Tutelage, the act of protecting or guiding, guardianship. In international law, tutelage is the state of being under the care and management of an international organization such as the League of Nations or United Nations. Isn't the whole world under the tutelage of the United Nations today? They're all incompetent based on their bankruptcy. This term applies, for example, to the status of a people who do not yet benefit from a fully operational government of their own. Are we under a fully operational government of our own? No, it's been suspended. Such as people displaced by war, civil, commercial, and living in a territory, a federal 10 jurisdictions, that will in the future be given its autonomy, but probably not soon. Tutorship, civil law. The office and power of a tutor. The power that an individual has sui juris to take care of one who cannot care for himself or herself. If you do not have the capacity to pay your debts at law, are you under a tutorship? Have to be, because you're incapacitated. The four types of tutorship are 1, tutorship by nature, 2, tutorship by will, 3, tutorship by the effect of the law, and 4, tutorship by judicial appointment. Tutorship by nature. Tutorship of a minor child that belongs by right to a surviving parent. What happens to your tutorship of that child when you enroll him in school? You just moved it over to the public. Under tutorship by nature, definition 2, tutorship of a minor child that belongs to the parent under whose care the child has been placed following divorce or judicial separation. If the parents are awarded joint custody, both have co-tutorship and equal authority, privileges, and responsibilities. Second definition of tutorship, tutorship by will. That is a tutorship that is created first by the will of the parent who dies last. Or 2, by any declaration of the surviving father or mother, or the parent who is the curator of the other spouse. Curator of the other spouse? That's one that speaks for them because that spouse that has the curator is incompetent. Executed before a notary and 2 witnesses. Interesting.